Today you're going to be learning about histograms. This is not a concept or a topic that's specific to astronomy or space science. It's more of a graphing lesson, but you need to know this information for one of the upcoming activities we're going to do in class. So right here I have an example of a histogram. Now you're probably thinking it looks a lot like a bar graph. And histograms and bar graphs are very similar, but there are some key differences. A histogram in some ways is a specialized type of bar graph. Now the purpose of a histogram is to represent the frequency of times. Frequency just means how frequently, how often, how many. A certain population, group of people, group of objects, group of animals, either get certain measurements or scores. Here the example is height. So for example, here we're looking at some population of cherry trees, right? And notice that this is not a continuous set of data. We're not looking at 61 feet, then 62 feet, then 63. We've grouped them into bins, all right? So we have one piece of data for the number of trees or the frequency of trees that have between 60 and 65 feet as their height. Then the next bin would be 65 to 70 feet, so on and so forth. So those are really what distinguish a histogram from a typical bar graph. On the y-axis, you have frequency, which is just a count. And on the x-axis, you have what we often refer to as bins, which are groups or ranges of numbers. So I can scroll down and show you a comparison between a typical bar graph and a histogram. So in a typical bar graph, we're comparing different categories. It could be countries, it could be colors, it could be foods. There are all different types of things that we can compare in a bar graph. And the different categories go on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, we're measuring something. So here we're taking some kind of measurement of money and comparing different countries. There's no title, so we don't actually know what it's comparing. Now, notice how the histogram is different. We don't have named categories on the x-axis. We're not looking at different countries or different genders or different grade levels. We're looking at different ranges of numbers. These are what we call, again, bins. And on the x-axis, we have a count of frequency. Frequency means how many. So let me show you an example of a histogram. So here's a histogram. And this histogram, it's missing a title. If it were properly done, it would have a title. But it's about the size of eggs in an experiment. So the experimenter took a whole bunch of eggs. Maybe they had a chicken coop or something. And they measured the size of all the eggs. Right? And then they grouped them into different categories. So the first bin or the first range is eggs that were 19 to 20 centimeters long, then 20 to 21, 21 to 22. So notice that we can't tell the difference between two eggs if they were 20.3 and 20.7 centimeters long, or millimeters, because we grouped them into the same category. So let's work through these two questions as examples. The first question asks, how many eggs were measured all together in this experiment? Well, we have to go and we have to count all the individual bins. So let me show you how to do that. So frequency, again, is on the y-axis. So there was one egg in this first range. There were 8 eggs in the second range. There were 17 eggs in the third range. There were 40 over here. There were 26 over here. And last but not least, 8. So if I wanted to know how many eggs in total were looked at in this experiment, I'd have to add them all together. So 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 plus 17 is 26. 26 plus 40 is 66. 66 plus 26 is 92. 92 plus 8 is 100. So in total, there were 100 eggs plotted on this histogram. So the next question asks, how many eggs were 23 centimeters or longer? Well, this time I'm only going to look at the eggs in the last two categories because those are the eggs that had a length measurement of 23, I keep saying centimeters, millimeters or longer. And the answer would be 26 plus 8 is 34 eggs have a length of 23 millimeters or longer.